Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So excited to be bringing you guys another weekend recap. This time you're joining me in the south of France in Paul Ricard. As you can see, we had a very successful weekend. We had a first, second, and third place finish, and it was an absolute blast. Man, do I have an exciting race to show you guys. Race 3 had to be one of the best Euroformula Open races, I'd say ever, and definitely one of the best races that I've ever been a part of. And spoiler alert, I actually won that race, so definitely check that one out later in the video. So this time you join me in the south of France at a track called Circuit Paul Ricard. It's in an absolutely jaw-dropping part of the world, and the track itself is nestled in this rocky, mountainous area. The mountain ranges themselves actually create this really unique wind pattern, so sometimes you can have wind coming from the northwest, which would give you a headwind into Sector 1 and Sector 3, which is where most of the corners are. But then you'll also get that tailwind going down the back straight, which also gives you more lap time down the straights. The disadvantage of that is you don't really get that strong of a toe down the straights because you have a tailwind. On the contrary, if you have a headwind going down the two back straights, and then you have a tailwind going into Sector 1 and Sector 3, then it's really tricky to drive the corners, but then you have more toe effect going down the straight in races. In our case this weekend, we just had that headwind going into Sector 1 and Sector 3, which is the best for lap time, but kind of the worst for racing. The wind was incredibly gusty and incredibly fast all the way through the weekend, but it was consistent in what direction it stayed in, which is not always the case at Paul Ricard. So this time I'm going to go a little bit quicker through qualifying and the first two races because, to be honest, they were not that exciting. In Quali, I missed out on pole by I think 2 or 3 tenths, which was really disappointing because we definitely had the pace for pole. Unfortunately, we went a little bit too aggressive with the setup for qualifying, expecting the track to be in a different state than it actually was, and the car was really difficult to drive. I was actually quite happy to have come out with P2, given that the car was really, honestly just difficult to keep on the track in the first place, but that wasn't too bad of a starting position for the first race. Both race 1 and race 2 were relatively uneventful. Finished the first race in second where I started. Then in the second race, I started 5th since it was the reversed top 6 order of the first race. And I was able to gain 2 positions right off the bat after 2 cars made a collision in front of me. And then I sort of tracked down the driver in P3, forced him into a mistake, and we were able to take the podium position. That race was really just hanging on for dear life from pretty much just lap 4 onwards. Everyone struggled with the same problem, which was tire graining, which you can see in these clips here that there's just that little black line going around the tire. The tires essentially just are ripping themselves apart, and the reason why is the temperature had gone down significantly, the air temperature, and then because the straights are so long, the surface of the tire is cooling down, but the core of the tire temperature is still hot, so you get this effect called cold graining. Now everyone was struggling with it, but I think the setup adaptation we had gone for in my car specifically ended up making it a little bit worse than some of the other people were dealing with, so I got it. Just like everyone did, I just got it a little bit earlier. So basically from lap 4, I was happy to have just kept the position I was in, but luckily the driver in front of me made a mistake and I was able to capitalize on that and finish in 3rd. Okay, so now it's time for the race you guys have been waiting for. This is race 3, and I'm starting that race in P3. It was pretty much a battle all the way from lights to flags, so you're definitely going to enjoy this one.
And it is all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in France. It looks like a decent start from Jack Crawford. Louis Foster might want to think about doing that outside manoeuvre that worked so well for him in race 2. Cameron Dass in the background trying to find a way through. Left, right, not working for him. Josh Mason having to go out very wide as they go through turns 1 and 2. But they all seem to make it through quite cleanly as we head down to turn 3 now. But Louis Foster has managed to...
So it was a very good start for me, but I basically just had nowhere to go. That's why I'm jinking back left and right, trying to figure out a gap to go down, but my teammates covered it pretty well. And because of that, I basically just had to bide my time, slot in a 3rd, and wait for an opportunity to present itself. And really, right from the beginning, the 2 guys in front of me started battling quite aggressively, so I was sort of in the perfect place to kind of wait and see what happened. And if there was an opportunity or a gap to go for it, of course I'm going to go for it. But at the same time, I did want to get caught up in an incident between 2 teammates for the lead, which obviously wouldn't bode well for the entire team.
Down the field.
And Cameron Dass is going around the outside of Jack Crawford at turn 10. There's a brave move, he's done it.
And he's going to try and see if he can make it too. He can't, he's getting late on the brakes there. Can he get Foster as well? Crawford not giving up without a fight. The 2 Americans go wheel to wheel. Louis Foster getting a great view of this in his rear mirror. And that will give Crawford the inside line, but into the next corner, that will give Dass the inside line and the advantage. And it looks like Dass has made it through into second.
So I think that had to have been probably my favorite overtake of the weekend. I mean, overtaking around the outside in high-speed corners, especially when you're offline in the dirt, I mean, it's super satisfying when you're able to pull that off. But by having that dirty air of Louis' car in front of us, that kind of evened the playing field and allowed me to pull it off.
But we'll hopefully get a replay of it. So Crawford back in front of Das. So a nice little bit of racing there between Crawford and Das, the two Americans. Josh Mason still very much in the hunt behind. This is it, I imagine. That is a brilliant move from Jack Crawford, who just absolutely dive bombs down the inside, forces Das into a little bit of a lockup so he can't turn in.
So this was the move of the race that ultimately gave me the win. And that might sound a little bit strange because I just lost a position, but it really pissed me off because I knew he was going to do it, and yet I didn't defend. And so I was really angry with myself after that point. I knew the only option to rectify it was basically to win the race. Now, while I was pretty angry with myself, I knew that driving on emotion wasn't going to be the recipe for success. So at this point, I'm seeing that the other two are going to start battling pretty aggressively again. And from the previous races, I knew that they usually ended up hurting each other more than they helped each other. So I just put myself in a position to be there when something eventually was going to happen.
Still second for now, so this battle for first, Foster, Crawford, Das, and the harder they fight, the more this brings Josh Mason into contender, and then Villa Gomez not too far behind that, and then we have a trio of cars of Asman, Stevenson and Trulli. So the top 8 really are quite close, and Louis Foster having to defend down the inside there as Crawford gets a good run on him. Das as well is going to be in there, and this looks like a carbon copy of what happened earlier on when Das took the lead, but they all seem to make it.
I knew all this battling was probably not so great on Jack and Louis' tires, so I was kind of biding my time and making sure that my tires were fresh enough to make a move stick when the opportunity presented itself.
Jack Crawford does it at turn 11.
That's going to allow Jack Crawford to start to pull away. Louis Foster not going to want to give that up without a fight, but he goes wide again, and that is going to leave him vulnerable to Cameron Das, who's the third car, who's going to sweep round taking the tighter line, but that's going to give him the outside line going into this final section of the lap, but he's going to stick with him because now he's going to get the inside line going into turn 14, but that is going to give Louis Foster the inside line going into turn 15. Could Foster get it slowed on the race? He even has a look at Jack Crawford for good measure, gets it stopped in time, no one touches, through onto the start-finish straight they go, and it is Crawford from Foster, from Das, but Das is absolutely all over the back of Foster, who isn't too far back from Crawford either. Crawford having to take the defensive inside line. Foster actually is going to have the advantage. Ow, that was a bit cheeky, I think, from Foster moving over on Crawford. Foster managing to get back through after the first 2 corners. These 3 are so tightly packed, and look, the 4th car of Josh Mason wants to have a go at this as well. He's going to take the outside line going into turn 3 and get close to Cameron Das. Not on that occasion though, as they were. Louis Foster from Jack Crawford, then it's Cameron Das and Josh Mason, your top 4 covered by less than a second.
Wow, it's getting dramatic.
And dramatic it was. I mean, I was starting to get a little bit impatient here because Louis was a bit of a cork in the bottle, let's say, pace-wise, and Jack wasn't able to really get around him and stay around him, so here I am trying to overtake.
Brilliant move, sweeping momentum there, but if Crawford stays on the outside, he could regain it. That's what's in, and Crawford jumps on the inside, turn 11, the double apex corner. He stays in there, but Das still has the momentum. He's going to be ahead when he comes back onto the inside line for the next left-hander. Crawford stays alongside, so the 2 Motor Park Americans are still running, and Crawford snatches the lead. Very possessive of the track space there, so I imagine they're going to end at least this corner in the same positions.
At this point, I'm getting a little bit nervous because all this battling between the 3 of us, and also just the lack of pace from Louis, he's leading at the moment, is allowing 3 more cars to catch us. And now I'm going to have to fight with many more cars behind us, not just Jack and Louis.
He's tucked in, he's going to be right on his tail, but Cameron Das is going to have the double slipstream effects. It's all about the positioning of the cars by this point, because we know they're close enough to pass, but they need to almost block off the driver behind so the driver in third doesn't get the double toe, and Foster takes the inside line. He's going to keep it turn 10. Crawford's going to duck on there as tight as he can in turn 11. Jabs around, but he can't get it done. Crawford's then going to tuck in, and he does it. Second time in a row he's pulled this off. Foster nose crunching, and they spin, contact. Crawford's losing the lead. Cameron Das is now ahead, but Crawford's going to dive down, reclaims the lead, going alongside of turn 12 into the apex. Through turn 13, bashes wheels slightly. Cameron Das, our points leader, back ahead.
And that was exactly what I was waiting for. The nature of the aggressive moves between the two of them sort of suggested that something was going to pop off eventually. It just took a little bit of patience, waiting for that moment to come, and when it did, the only option was to drive as fast as I could to try and create some sort of gap to Jack, because if we started fighting again, then we just threw everyone else behind us back in the mix again. We still have nearly half the race to go, so pushing for that long is very risky, but I hope the tire saving I did early on will pay off now.
Crawford is running out of time to make it the triple. 4 tenths currently, and fastest lap go to Crawford, and Crawford gets out wide onto the runoff there. He has a snap of oversteer.
When I saw this flick of oversteer from Jack in the rearview mirror, I knew I had basically won the race at that point. He had just collected a bunch of marbles onto his tire, so I knew I was going to have the pace to just run away right at the end. While we weren't wheel to wheel for those 8 laps, that was a battle through and through, because it was all about who could push the hardest for the longest without making a mistake, and whoever made that mistake first basically lost.
Because Cameron Dass has driven a sublime race. He comes through turns 14, he'll enter the final corner, and having started this race from the second row, he's come through with some brilliant overtaking manoeuvres to win race 3 here in France at the circuit Paul Ricard for Euro Formula Open. Cameron Dass is your winner. So Cameron Dass very happy with that indeed. Because it was Cameron Dass who took his 4th win in 2021, who wins race 3. Let's hear from him.
Cameron, welcome back to this position. Quite an entertaining way to finish the weekend. Great race and a great win. You must be elated.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a win from pole is always nice, but a win from any position behind that's even more gratifying. So I had got a really nice move around Jack in turn 11, and then I kind of gave it up the next corner, so I was really, really mad. And I just kind of had fire in my eyes, and I had to win the race after that.
All right, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I think it was a really good weekend, especially considering we kind of started off on the back foot, but we managed to scrape a podium out of every single race, scored really good points, extended the championship lead, so that's exactly what you want to do in a championship, so really couldn't be happier. Huge thank you to the Motorpark Academy team for putting in some crazy hours over the weekend and obviously putting in the massive brain power it takes to be competitive in a championship like this, so thank you very much. Also, thank you to all the people who sent supportive messages. Really, really appreciate it, and it definitely keeps me fired up. So with that being said, stay tuned for Spa-Francorchamps, which is the next race coming up in a few weeks' time. Thank you guys for watching, and see you on the next one.